James Davis.
Hello, listener, and thank you so much for joining us on the Teaching Abroad pod coming at you on July 28th. I am not James Davis. This week, our regular host, James, is off for a very exciting reason. He's moving into his new house. Congrats, James. So, filling in will be me, Rowan Lopez, and my co host and partner in crime in the Oxford Seminars Job Placement Service, Alex Yealand. This podcast is brought to you by Oxford Seminars. If you're looking to teach overseas or online, check out our new and improved 120-hour TESOL, TESOL, TEFL course, complete with access to the unrivaled job placement service. Go to oxfordseminars.com for more details. And welcome to episode 8 of the Teaching Abroad pod, where we discuss all things TESOL, from travel adventure stories and food recommendations to teaching tips and job search advice. We will be releasing new episodes every 2 weeks, so be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. On today's show, we're going to be talking about what it's like to relocate to Bangkok, Thailand. We have a very special guest this week, Canadian teacher and actor, Brian Knox McGugan, who has picked up anchor and moved to Bangkok. Before we get to Brian, though, Alex, you have some unique experiences in Thailand, don't you? What were you doing in Thailand?
Yeah, Rowan, I've been to Thailand a few times, usually just on trips. I did do a little bit of teaching, some volunteer teaching in the Northeast on one of the trips, and we were staying with a family, and the mom of the family was a teacher in the local school there, and we were actually supposed to be helping them on their farm, but it was the dry season, so the farm, there wasn't anything happening on the farm. So she said, why don't you just come in and help me with my class instead? And we said, sure. So we came in, and we didn't have a lot of teaching experience, so there's two of us who are both Canadians, so we just quickly decided, okay, we'll just stumble our way through some sort of fake Canadian easy geography lesson. So we kind of drew a squiggly blob on the board and tried to pretend it was a map of Canada and tried to tell them about maple syrup and east and west and up and down. And, these kids seemed to be mildly interested, and we got through the morning. And then she said, so what do you want to do with them after lunch? And we said, we're from North America. Can we just take them outside and play sports? And she was like, that's great. And so the whole afternoon we just played sports, and then that became our go-to, that became our jam, just playing all kinds of different sports and teaching them different sports. It was fun. How about you, Rowan? Have you been to Thailand?
I did go to Thailand quite a few years back. This was even before I went to Korea. I had a friend from university who was living in Bangkok. He was putting his journalism degree to use and working as a reporter for the Bangkok Post, while his girlfriend at the time was teaching English in Bangkok. So they kindly let me come crash at their apartment in Bangkok for a couple of weeks. And I had a blast. I had my trusty Lonely Planet guide, and I took the train up to Lopburi, which is famous for its crab-eating macaque monkeys. There's this temple sort of in the center of town that was given to the monkeys by the local monks, and they've lived there forever. It's such a tourist attraction. You can go see them. They'll come right up close to you. Apparently you can even buy food from local vendors to feed them. One thing that the guide did mention, though, as being rather important, is to keep your hands on your cameras, phones, any valuables, because they're pretty sneaky. And when you're not looking, it might sneak up on you and just grab them right out of your pocket. So word of advice for anyone going to Lopburi. And apparently, someone told me recently, it's gotten out of hand, actually. They've taken over a local abandoned cinema and are living there. And I don't know. I haven't been to Lopburi lately, but hopefully the monkeys get under control. Then I went up to Ayutthaya, which is an ancient capital, and so many beautiful temples and ancient buildings there. So if you're into history and architecture, definitely a trip to Ayutthaya is worth it. Being in Bangkok, it's just such a vibrant and interesting city, a city like I'd never seen before. The food was spectacular. I mean, it was going to Bangkok that made me really fall in love with pad thai and pad siu and green Thai curry and things like that. And in the neighborhood my friend was living in, we were so lucky to have some of the best street food in Thailand just right basically down the street. They have these just tables set up on the street, and the chefs just working furiously to give you these delicious foods, deep fried whole fish, things I'd never seen before. I didn't know how I felt about my food looking me in the face at the time, but thinking back, it was pretty good. And funnily enough, what I remember is going to a restaurant, a very fancy looking restaurant, and paying a lot more money for the food. And actually, it wasn't as good. Street food was better than the restaurant food. And that really stuck with me about eating in Bangkok. We visited the floating market, some bars. The only time I've ever ridden a mechanical bull was in Bangkok. So anyone looking for mechanical bull riding, maybe take a visit there. And then the last thing we did before I left was it was a holiday period, and we took an overnight bus to Koh Chang Island. And we were just sipping our Chang beers all night on the bus, and we got there and took the ferry to Koh Chang, and it was such a beautiful little island, very tropical, very beautiful white sand beaches, terrific snorkeling. You don't even need to scuba dive. You just take your snorkel mask out and you can see all the tropical fish you've ever seen in your life, probably. We got little, not fancy at all, huts for about $5 a night right on the beach. They had a restaurant on said beach, some pretty good food. We had, nights of Thai buckets, which I'd never seen before. Just everybody just sharing this giant bucket of various juices and pops and liquors and getting a little tipsy. There's one teacher who'd come with us who had way too many drinks and took his scooter and just decided he wanted to go blazing down the road and ended up about 20 feet into the jungle somehow. His poor girlfriend had to try and drag him out. But just, some good parties on that beach on Koh Chang, I would say, for a very low price. So I always think if I'm going to go back to Thailand, I have to go to Koh Chang again. What a great spot. Met some very interesting people there too. Some Israeli soldiers on leave, some Vietnam War vet who had been a helicopter pilot in Thailand for decades. Just the stories people had to tell. It's amazing who you'll meet when traveling abroad.
I guess the only follow-up question is, if you were to go back to Thailand, would you indulge in Thai buckets again? Was that a one-off, or?
I don't know if my body can handle it anymore. I'm good after, 3 or 4 beers. That's probably enough for me.
Yeah, it's an amazing country. There's so much to see or do. You can go back and back and back. And I remember one other thing that I did on another trip was I got to visit a couple of the national parks, which was really nice because they're spectacular and they're much less visited than some of the other more touristy places, but they're gorgeous. And the one we went to in the south, we read our guidebook and it said, oh, you have to book in advance and you have to make a reservation because they have a very limited number of camping spots. But it was kind of off season. And so we thought, well, let's just try it. So we went into the park and we got to the office and we said, look, we don't have a reservation. And they sort of gave us one of these looks like, we looked at each other like, this is. So they went back and they discussed it in the back room and they came out and they said, okay, here's what we can do. There's no one in the park right now, so we can let you go in for 3 nights, but you're going to need camping equipment. Did you bring your own camping equipment? And we said, no. They said, And then we looked at each other like, okay, here's the part where they're going to try to make a bit of money by renting us some overpriced camping equipment. We've come too far. So they went back into the back room and came back and we were like getting our money ready, like, okay, well, and they said, okay, here's what we can do. We can give you 3 nights of camping equipment and all the supplies you're going to need for free because we're so excited that you've come to camp in the park. And we said, awesome. Well, I think we'll take it. Yeah. And so we went in, we camped, and it was gorgeous. It was just beautiful. And on our way out, when we dropped the camping equipment back off, they had a little donation box, and we just, like, whatever cash we had, we just tried to stuff as much as we could in the little donation box. But yeah, there's some gorgeous national parks to check out in Thailand too.
If I were to go back, I'd probably want to do what you did. I mean, that sounds like a much more authentic. I did the tourist thing, I guess, and it was really beautiful. And I don't I wouldn't do it any differently back then. But if I go back, yeah, it sounds like a gorgeous experience. And what an example of the Thai kindness, the land of smiles. They call it that for a reason.
Yeah, such a beautiful culture and so friendly. And I mean, there's a reason it's such a popular destination. I mean, it's kind of got it all.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Thailand really is a place you should visit if ever teaching in Asia. The flights are not too expensive, and the things you can do there are just mind-blowing. There's just so much to see and do. And in a moment's time, we'll be lucky enough to be talking to someone who's living the Thai life as we speak. But first,
Can't wait.
A word from our sponsor.
With Oxford Seminars, starting your new career teaching ESL couldn't be easier. Oxford Seminars has trained more than 70,000 teachers over the past 20 years, and you could be next. Their comprehensive 120-hour program starts with live instruction from an experienced ESL teacher, followed by convenient online modules. If your goal is to relocate overseas, or even teach from the comfort of your own home, Oxford Seminars' renowned lifetime job placement service will get you where you want to be. Call 1-800-779-1779 by July 30th and give the code POD728 to get $50 off your Oxford Seminars TESOL course price when paying in full. If you're too late, don't worry. There'll be another code in the next episode. Now back to the show.
We are now very excited to be joined by Brian Knox McGugan, who completed the Oxford Seminars TESOL TEFL course in Vancouver back in 2018. In addition to being a teacher, musician, and comic performer, Brian has also earned a BFA in theater acting and is a fairly accomplished film and TV actor. Definitely, I would say the most accomplished film and TV actor we have ever had on this podcast. He's been cast in such well-known series as The Commish, MacGyver, The X-Files, Highlander, and DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Earlier this year, Brian moved to Thailand to join his partner in Bangkok, where he's been involved in some very interesting educational projects. Welcome to the pod, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
So
it's very exciting to be here. I've actually been very excited about this.
Oh, great. Seems we've got a bit of a delay between here and Thailand, so I guess we'll try.
A bit of a lag.
Try and be very patient and wait for each other to speak and not talk over each other too much. But I was going to say,
good idea.
Before we get into the teaching or Thailand questions, we just have to ask, what's your favorite memory of being on set?
Okay. Many films and TV and things I worked on, both in front of the camera as an actor, as well as behind the camera, believe it or not, as a crew member. And some of my greatest memories could have been some of the hardest times. So I just wanted to mention a couple of those. First, I worked on a movie called Angel Eyes, a feature film with Jennifer Lopez. And my job was video playback coordinator. So I got to sit with Jennifer Lopez every day for 2 months. And basically, nobody wanted video playback on that film because the director and the cinematographer were very old school. They're very confident. It was a great show. But the person who did want playback was Jennifer Lopez because she was very worried about her acting. So I got to sit with her every day and watch her performances, and she would critique her work, and she was very self-critical and very hardworking. And I got to meet her mom too, who was an amazing woman. What an honor it was to sort of hang out with them, and I have only good things to say about her. She was so wonderful to me and to us.
That's great. You hear stories about some of the brightest stars not being the easiest to work with, but it sounds like Jennifer Lopez, who is one of the biggest stars on the planet, obviously, was just a joy to work with.
I even remember on our rap party, I even danced with her for one dance. It was quite lovely. I mean, funny too, because this was a song I remember from back in Vancouver, hanging out at a sort of an establishment where I don't know if you'd want to know what goes on there. But so her music was ingrained in my head from another time and place. It's like, oh my God, this is very surreal.
That's
But that was
amazing.
cool. Yeah, so that was good. One good memory. The other one would be I worked on a film called Exit Wounds with Seagal for a total of 5 continuous months in Toronto, and maybe the hardest work I've done in my life. And I thought I was going to die. But from those experiences are what bring us to appreciate the good moments that we had. I had some amazing moments, and even with Steven Seagal, I know he's difficult, sure, but boy, was he ever nice to me as an individual. So I was just remember the sort of positive side. And my boyfriend at the time I was seeing in Toronto, they would let him come onto set. He would sit in an apple box while I was working for like 8 hours, and we would hang out. So it was cool. A really great experience in my life.
Yeah, what an amazing journey through acting. And do you have like favorite shows movies that you worked on, or do you not really think of it that way? You sort of take away from each different things.
Oh no, definitely have favorites. Like, for example, my work as an actor, I've never really had that big a part as an actor. I had some basically large principal roles. And the role that I really thought I did quite well on was called DC Legends of Tomorrow. And so I really did a lot of preparation. And I came in with this German commander guy from like 1911 or something. Basically just did my sort of German accent, sort of educated German accent, like this sort of thing. So he sort of sounds British, but also sounds a bit German at the same time, like that. And so it's a small part, but I got to act with the 2 main actors. And the concept was that they went back in time, I guess. And so I started doing the rehearsal with these 2 actors, and they were like, oh my God, we don't have accents. You have an accent. But I think it's okay. I think in this show you can have whatever accent you want, and you went back in time and transported over to Germany. So whatever, I think it's okay. But anyway, it was a great scene, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, I feel like anything DC, you should be able to stretch your imagination a little bit to appreciate something like that. So I'm sure nobody's going to be complaining about accents.
No, it's just all about, they have given themselves the power to go anywhere at any time. So
it sounds like a lot of fun. So I guess getting back to where you are right now and these weird and strange times in the world, how did you end up working in Thailand, and how are you liking Thailand these days?
Let me answer that question in a strange way. And let's say, and the time I left for here was about 7 months ago, on December the 25th, actually. I flew on Christmas Day and arrived here the day after, I suppose. And my point to myself was, well, if I'm locked down, or if I'm in this situation with COVID and it might get worse, who knows? So I better just do something now. And this is sort of my objective for my next life. And why don't I just start it now? I didn't think I'm ready, but you know what? Do it anyways. And so I came here, and it's been really interesting. I have worked a little bit. I've done some work with Surin Karuwarat University a few times as a guest lecturer. And my favorite one of those was the second and third year students of the social sciences. They all wanted to enter into a contest put on by the American Embassy here for I Have a Dream by Martin Luther King. And so I did a whole sort of a lecture and a sort of workshop with them online, where we worked on the elements of public speaking and the elements of the rhythm of the English language and sort of what it takes to make a great speech and that sort of thing. And I coached about 17 of these kids in that class. And then the follow-up to that was that they would all submit a video to the American Embassy for the contest, and hopefully one of them would win, which they didn't. They didn't win, but about 5 or 6 of them made it to the finals. And you can see that in the reel if you check out the American Embassy Martin Luther King contest back in March, I think it was. I'm very proud of those students. They did really well. And they were innovative with their interpretations of that speech. So that was really awesome. I enjoyed that a lot.
So with your arrival in Thailand, arriving over Christmas, as you said, and then with COVID causing a bit of a delay in the school year, I know you have been really, really active in your job search in Bangkok. So do you have any tips or tricks you've picked up or strategies you've used?
Just be mindful of like if you're going to work in this city, this has been one thing that's caused me to make some real strong. It's an enormous city, and although right now we're locked down, so you can kind of drive anywhere right now, but you know what? It's a city of 13 million people, and normally if there's a commute that's like says it's 20 minutes or something on Google Maps, there's no way that's 20 minutes. It's usually about 2 or 3 hours, honestly, if you get a motorcycle and the MRT or whatever, if you try and drive. So this is important. Like if you want to work somewhere in Thailand, you probably want to think about that you want to live pretty close by to where that location is. And you want to check it out to see if that is really where you want to go and teach. I mean, I was offered quite a few positions actually, and it was agonizing, but I had to sort of say no for now because my own personal energy, I wasn't sure if I could do it with the commute. Second of all, I wasn't willing to move that far away. There was one that was so far away that literally it would have been on a mountain. So I thought, well, it's not what I'm looking for this right now. But and there was one that was really hard because it was not so far away. A wonderful job, but again, I'm just not sure about my energy levels. I'm not sure if I can do 5 days a week, getting up at 6 a.m. right now. So I am eager to do it. I actually am really keen to try, but I'm just not sure if I'm quite ready yet.
I mean, I can relate. I don't think I'd want to be getting up at 6 a.m. 5 days a week either. And the other thing to keep
honestly,
in mind,
I find
guess, for
I find
a lot of the jobs in Thailand is they're mostly available in public schools with very large classes. So that would require a certain energy level as well, right?
Yes. And that's okay. I have been actually aiming for more of the private places, but what's happening now is that there's been a shift towards wanting more. They want graduates with more hours. So I'm looking forward to kind of to augmenting my education with you guys and getting some more hours so I can probably qualify for some of those jobs. For example, like Wall Street English, they're really cool.
So you're looking to do one of these specialization modules, maybe?
I will, yeah. I want to do the business. I think I want to do the business module. So,
yeah, and I
guess, so Wall Street English is one of the ones I like a lot because they have a drop-in kind of atmosphere. Their members can come at any time. They have longer, different hours, and a sort of more creative workspace.
I've seen these private language school jobs are kind of few and far between compared to the public school jobs. So do you find being in Thailand, applying in person, is that a good way to get in with a public school, or sorry, a private language school?
I think, yeah, you know what? And I've seen this written before, that all the online stuff is fine and all the usual protocols are all well and good, but you can also augment it by just actually literally going around and walking into a school and saying, hey, Thailand is still in many ways face-to-face, you know? So yeah, you can go through recruiters and all that sort of thing, but you can also try, like literally, if you know someone that's like the world here, like if you know someone who can say something to someone and then you get a phone call, right? That happened to me a few times. Didn't get the job yet, but I mean, literally the hotel I'm living at here, the owner went to Bangkok Christian College, and so he put in a call and they called me, so I got an interview. But I don't think you would get an interview otherwise.
Nice. So I guess on that note, you mentioned the university and this interview with the college.
Mhm.
But are there any other kinds of teaching related projects you've been able to work on since you've been there?
Yes. Well, apart from the fact that I now have 8 private students doing one-on-one tutoring, which I find actually takes quite a bit of time. And they're all from Canada, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's really surreal to connect with my students all the way from around the world. They're actually, I think 4 or 5 of them are from Vancouver, 3 of them are from Montreal. But the other project I've been working on is building there's an online educational company. And so all of it is in Thai. So all of their instructors are in Thai until now.
Mhm.
So I'm going to be their first Falang instructor doing a course in business all in English. And the enormity of this task is something I am just beginning to grasp now. But after 2 rehearsals, I feel very confident. The first rehearsal did not go so well. And the second rehearsal I did yesterday went really well because I'm learning how to use PowerPoint and construct sort of a presentation myself. And I'm learning how to slow down and, sort of use the camera like I am right now, I suppose. And so I've got a ton more work to do in the next few weeks to get this ready. But, the pay is pretty good and they really like me and I really like them. So hopefully I can keep making more courses as we move forward. That's the idea. And although it's not a traditional form of income, if I can master how to do it, the pay is quite good. The hours are doable. And I think it'll make me quite well known in Thailand, hopefully.
Just before we started recording, you were sharing a little taste of your acting skills. And I was wondering, between acting and teaching, are there transferable skills there?
Sure. And I have to remind myself of those things because often, even with my education with you guys and then some beginning experience, I really get into these moments where I doubt myself. And then I realize, no, you just have to. I mean, in a way, part of it is the old fake it till you make it thing. I've done some of the background work. I've prepared the lesson or something. I'm still not sure if I've got it, but ultimately you just have to go on and make it work. And everything's available for you, even if you haven't fully prepared. So I found that, okay, I hate doing that, but if I'm missing something in a lesson, I can pick up on what a student is giving me, and hopefully I can pull up something quick, or I can even go to something else that I never even thought of if I'm fast enough to try and pick up on what their question was or what their need is. Like for even a sound, like they're having trouble with the TH sound. So, okay, I've got that ready. I've got a worksheet for TH sounds. Everyone makes that mistake. So we can do that. Transferable because I'm an audio kinesthetic learner. And so sound and action for me are a big deal. And so I can it seems that as teacher for accent reduction, that seems to be where most of my work is going. So literally imitating, listening to the sounds, getting them to do the same thing, getting them to make the right shapes and the right rhythms to kind of sound more native.
I'm not surprised that there's a lot of skills you can take from acting and use in the classroom. So I guess before we let you go, we should ask some of the fun stuff about travel and food that everybody's always interested in, especially in an amazing place like Thailand. So maybe let's start with travel. Do you have any favorite travel spots you've been to, either in Bangkok or in other parts of Thailand?
Sure, I have 2 that I was going to mention, and one of them is a restaurant that you'd asked about. So there's many restaurants in the city here. A lot of the food that I like the most is actually the street food. And some of them will look just like it's a little table with a sign, but it turns out it's a 1-star Michelin establishment, and it's very famous. And you go, what? It's just shiny tables in the middle of the street. But I think my favorite is a restaurant. It's a really cool little sort of side restaurant in a hotel, which I wrote down here. It's called the U Saturn Hotel. The U Saturn Hotel is an oasis located in somewhere in the Saturn area of Bangkok, and it's walled, and it's a sort of a beautiful hotel with these sort of levels of water and fountains and sort of seamless glass windows and this sort of thing. Unfortunately, really hard struck by the COVID crisis, but this little restaurant is called The Library, and you just go in there, and it's very elegant, and very upscale, but actually right now very reasonable. And you can sit there and enjoy, amazing food. Not necessarily that it's not like street food. It's sort of more like a really amazing fish or something like that. So I've been there twice, and I really enjoyed that. And for travel, we did have a chance earlier on in the year before this got worse and worse like it is now. We went to Chiang Mai for about 5 or 6 days, and the hotel there was amazing. It was a completely different energy, very relaxing, and that sort of thing. I actually loved walking on this. It's called the Walking Mall, I think. It's like a really long street. You walk and walk and walk and walk, and all these foods and things you can buy and stuff. And we talked to some people that were busking, and they spoke English. So they said, "Hey, how are you? How are you?" "Oh, fine." And I say, "I actually play bass guitar." And they said, "Really? Okay, come on up here." So the next thing you know, I'm playing a song with them, right? I was like, whoa, this is surreal. I'm in Chiang Mai, Thailand, playing a sort of standard blues song with people I don't know. It was really cool. And
jamming in Chiang
Pete
Mai.
got really excited and started recording, and we took pictures. And yeah, Chiang Mai was a real amazing. We just had a chance to relax and be ourselves. Sometimes the tension and stress in Bangkok is tough, but it's good. We had a really great time to get up there. I don't know if you have too much more time, but there is one last aspect to this. And I know that back in Vancouver, I had come from a period of being stuck. Even though I worked as an actor occasionally, I was really felt like distanced and separated from everyone. I felt stuck. I felt like I had no community, really no friends. And I had a subsidized room there, but it didn't mean I really had a home. It's interesting. I wasn't homeless, but I didn't think my room is really a home at all. Whereas here, you know what? It's kind of feels very precarious and temporary. I have to renew my visa every 2 months, but I feel more like it's a home. I feel more like there's a future, right? So this was part of my dream, was to find a way to transition into a better life and a new culture. Part of it comes with a huge price tag. Because when I left for here, the COVID crisis was raging in Canada. And now Thailand pretty well avoided it last year. But now it's the reverse. Now I get to watch as people are coming out of the crisis in North America. It sounds like everyone's feeling better and that sort of thing. And we're going into this serious, dark situation. So, I'm grateful that I have a chance to figure out how to focus my energy and how to learn from this, because it's really overwhelming. We just saw a news item where people are actually dying on the street, and they're being left there because there's not enough resources to get them taken away. They're most often like maybe homeless or whatever, right? But it's pretty nasty, right? So I want to end on a little more positive note, though. I did some volunteer work for a group called Food for Fighters, and because I was trying to figure out what can I do, right? And it was just a little bit. I did some promotion for them, and I lifted some rice bags onto a truck, but they helped to get food out to these people in the communities that are really suffering. Because Bangkok, they're really tough. They just lock communities down, and they can't go out. They need food and they need resources. So I helped with that group. And I've got some pictures that I can send to you. You can
Yeah,
share
please
those
do
if you want.
send us many pictures of you in Thailand as you can. We always like to cut in some nice photos of what people are doing, so people can see, what life's like where you are. And I do commend you definitely for using your health and ability to get out and help the people who need it in Thailand. That's very, very commendable indeed.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is finding a vaccine as a foreigner here is really tough. The issue here right now is that there may have been a mistake with the kind of vaccines they ordered. So they're trying to change that. But the mistake is that the vaccine that they ordered is not working right. So they need to like change their strategy, and they're trying. I know they're trying. So, but in the meantime, it's really a pretty dire situation. So in the meantime, it's about me just trying to figure out how can I apply myself? How can I stay positive? What do I need to learn from this? I know I'm going to look back on this and say, wow, what an amazing time. It's probably the most amazing time of my life.
Well, I guess on that note, the last question, we've made it a habit of asking every guest so far. And what we really want to know is if anyone is having hesitations about taking the TESOL course or teaching abroad, what would you tell that person?
Well, hesitation, sure, you can have hesitation. I'd say the cost is so minimal, and the idea is so easy. Just go for it. I mean, there's so many different options. I'm sure when things become more, I'm not going to say normal, but when they become more livable and more dealt with, I'm sure that there's going to be lots of opportunities. I think there are opportunities right now, actually. We have to be aware that there's a huge difference between what we're told in the media and what's really happening in the world. So don't hesitate for too long. Just go ahead and take the course, take the upgrades, and find a way that you can let go of what you don't want to hold on to anymore. And now I'm talking to myself as well, by the way. So letting go of those things you no longer need in your life, having the courage to do that, and just be confident that when you let those things go, the things that are meant to arrive will come into your life. And so whether that be teaching in Japan or Korea or in South America or whatever it might be, I think that fear you have at first is okay, but push through it.
Great words of wisdom. Very well said. Thanks so much, Brian.
It's an honor to be here, and you guys have been so wonderful to me. I mean, every time I write, I get a nice letter back of it. Okay, don't feel so like desperate and sort of like nothing's ever going to happen anymore. So thank you for being a warm shoulder. I really have appreciated your support so much.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot for coming on and sharing some of your stories with us. We've really been looking forward to it.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Brian, for taking the time to chat with us today. It was so great having you. Before we go, Alex, could you tell us a bit more about how the Oxford Seminars Job Placement Service can help course graduates in finding teaching jobs in Thailand? What kinds of teaching jobs are predominantly available there?
Yeah, it's a good question, Rowan. Despite the pandemic, we do have a number of contacts in Thailand who've been able to remain quite active recruiting new teachers over the past year. Many of the teaching positions in Thailand are for teaching primary and secondary school age children. The Thai school year generally has spring and fall starting periods in May and October, respectively. So currently, recruiting is on for the fall of 2021 ahead of that next start to the Thai school year in mid-October. And in terms of locations, there's a real variety of positions available in central Thailand, Bangkok, some positions there, northern Thailand, if mountains and slightly cooler weather is what you're looking for. But if you're just dying to get close to those beaches and those spectacular islands in southern Thailand, there's also some great teaching opportunities available in southern Thailand as well. So there's sort of a little bit for everyone in Thailand.
That's great. Thanks so much for sharing that with us, Alex. And thanks everyone for tuning in to the Teaching Abroad pod. We'll be releasing new episodes every other Wednesday. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe and also share it with your friends. Remember, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast. If you have any great ideas you'd like to hear us discuss in upcoming episodes, please leave them in the comments on YouTube or send them in the comments to Oxford Seminars on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You can email us at teachingabroadpod@oxfordseminars.com. So long.